Hare Krishna, I read. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prisabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyvari Pashatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Which book today, Prabhu?
What, Prabhu?
Which book today, Prabhu?
Same book. Rivo.
Okay,
So
Prabhu.
here, what is the chapter? Let's see. One second, I need to check where we left.
Last time it was Kidding Kamsa.
Oh yeah. Yes, Prabhu.
Himanshu Prabhu wants to join, but his internet is slow, unfortunately.
Yeah, kidding. 43rd. So now it's 44. Yes, Rivo. Okay, who wants to start the chapter?
Prabhu, can I read?
Yes, Prabhu. Rivo.
Yes, Prabhu, just 1 minute. Yes, Prabhu. Krishna recovers the son of his teacher. When Lord Krishna saw that Vasudeva and Devaki were remaining standing in a reverential attitude, he immediately expanded his influence of Yoga Maya so that they could treat him and Balarama as children. As in the material world, the relationship existing between the father and mother and children can be established among different living entities by the influence of the illusory energy, so by the influence of Yoga Maya, the devotee can establish a relationship in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead is his child. After creating this situation by his Yoga Maya, Krishna appearing with his elder brother Balarama as the most illustrious sons in the dynasty of Satvatas, very submissively and respectfully addressed Vasudeva and Devaki. My dear father and mother, although you have always been very anxious for the protection of our lives, you could not enjoy the pleasure of having us as your babies, as your growing boys, and as your adolescent youths. Krishna indirectly praised the fatherhood of Nanda Maharaj and motherhood of Yashoda as the most glorious, because although he and Balarama were not their born sons, Nanda and Yashoda actually enjoyed their childhood pastimes. By nature's own arrangement, the childhood of the embodied living being is enjoyed by the parents. Even in the animal kingdom, the parents are found to be very affectionate to the cubs, being captivated by the activities of their children. They take much care for their well-being. As for Vasudeva and Devaki, they were always very anxious for the protection of their sons, Krishna and Balarama. That is why Krishna, after his appearance, was immediately transferred to another's house. Balarama was also transferred from Devaki's womb to Rohini's womb. Vasudeva and Devaki were full of anxieties for Krishna's and Balarama's protection, and they could not enjoy their childhood pastimes. Krishna said, "Unfortunately, being ordered by our fate, we could not be raised by our own parents to enjoy childhood pleasures at home. My dear father and mother, a man has a debt to pay to his parents, from whom he gets his body, which can bestow upon him all the benefits of material existence. According to Vedic injunction, this human form of life enables one to perform all kinds of religious activities, fulfill all kinds of desires, and acquire all kinds of wealth. And only in this human form is there every possibility that one can get liberation from material existence. This body is produced by the combined efforts of the father and mother. Every human being should be obliged to his parents and understand that he cannot repay his debt to them. If after growing up, a son does not try to satisfy his parents by his actions or by an endowment of riches, he is surely punished after death by the superintendent of death and made to eat his own flesh. If a person is able to care for or give protection to old parents, children, the spiritual master, brahmanas, and other dependents, but does not do so, he is considered to be already dead, although he is supposedly breathing. My dear father and mother, you have always been very anxious for our protection, but unfortunately, we could not render any service unto you. Up to date, we have simply wasted our time. We could not serve you for reasons beyond our control. Mother and father, please excuse us for our own for our sinful action. Hare Krishna.
When the Supreme Personality of Godhead was speaking as an innocent boy in very sweet words, both Vasudeva and Devaki became captivated by parental affection and embraced them with great pleasure. They were amazed and could not speak or answer the words of Krishna, but simply embraced him and Balarama in great affection and remained silent, shedding incessant tears. Thus consoling his father and mother, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appearing as the beloved son of Devaki, approached his grandfather Ugrasena and announced that Ugrasena would now be the king of the Yadu kingdom. Kamsa had been forcibly ruling over the kingdom of Yadu, in spite of their presence of his father, whom he had arrested. But after the death of Kamsa, Kamsa's father was released and announced to be the king of the Yadu kingdom. It appears that in those days, in the western part of India, there were many small kingdoms, and they were ruled by the Yadu dynasty, Andaka dynasty, Vrishni dynasty, and Boja dynasty. Maharaja Ugrasena belonged to the Boja dynasty. Therefore, Krishna indirectly declared that the king of Boja dynasty would be emperor of the other small kingdoms. He willingly asked Maharaja Ugrasena to rule over them because they were his subjects. The word praja is used both for the progeny and for the citizens. So Krishna belonged to the praja as a grandson to Maharaj Ugrasena and as a member of the Yadu dynasty. He voluntarily accepted the rule of Maharaja Ugrasena. He informed Ugrasena, being cursed by the Yayadi, the kings of the Yadu dynasty will not rise against the throne. It will be our pleasure to serve you as your servants. Our full cooperation with you will make your position more exalted and secure, so that kings of other dynasties will not hesitate to pay their respective revenues. Protected by us, you will be honored even by the demigods from the heavenly planets. My dear grandfather, out of fear of my late uncle Kamsa, all the kings belonging to the Yadu dynasty, Vrishni dynasty, Andaka dynasty, Madhu dynasty, the Sharha dynasty, and Kukura dynasty were very anxious and disturbed. Now you can pacify them all and give them assurance of security. The whole kingdom will be peaceful. All the kings in the neighboring area had left their homes in fear of Kamsa and were living in distant parts of the country. Now, after the death of Kamsa and their reinstatement of Ugrasena as king, the neighboring kings were given all kinds of presentation and comforts. Then they returned to scroll number. Then they returned to their respective homes. After this nice political arrangement, the citizens of Madura were pleased to live in Madura, being protected by the strong arms of Krishna and Balarama. On account of good government in the presence of Krishna and Balarama, the inhabitants of Madura felt complete satisfaction in the fulfillment of all their material desires and necessities. And because they saw Krishna and Balarama daily, eye to eye, they soon forgot all material miseries completely. As soon as they saw Krishna and Balarama coming out on the street, very nicely dressed and smiling and looking here and there. The citizens were immediately filled with loving ecstasies simply by seeing the personal presence of Mukunda. Mukunda refers to one who can award liberation and transcendental bliss. Krishna's presence acted as such a vitalizing tonic that not only the younger generation but even the old men of Mathura became fully invigorated with youthful energy and strength by regularly seeing him. Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda were also living in Mathura because Krishna and Balarama were there, but after some time they wanted to go back to Vrindavana. Krishna and Balarama went before them and very feelingly and affectionately embraced Nanda and Yashoda. And Krishna began to speak as follows: My dear father and mother, although I was born of Vasudeva and Devaki, you have been our real father and mother, because from our very birth and childhood, you raised us with great affection and love. Your affectionate love for us was more than anyone can offer on one's own children. You are actually our father and mother because you raised us as your own children at a time when we were just like orphans. For certain reasons, we were rejected by our father and mother, and you protected us. My dear father and mother, I know you will be feeling separation by returning to Vrindavana and leaving us here. But please rest assured that I shall be coming back to Vrindavana just after giving some satisfaction to my real father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki, my grandfather, and other relatives and family members. Krishna and Balarama satisfied Nanda and Yashoda by sweet words and by presentation of various clothing, ornaments, and properly made utensils. They satisfied them along with their friends and neighbors who had come with them from Vrindavana to Madura as fully as possible. On account of his excessive parental affection for Balarama and Krishna, Nanda Maharaj felt tears in his eyes and he embraced them and started with the cowherd men for Vrindavana. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hero Prabhu, can you read?
Yes.
Hare
After this, Vasudeva had a son initiated by sacred thread as the token of second birth, which is essential for the higher castes of human society. Vasudeva called for his family priest and learned Brahmanas, and the sacred thread ceremony of Krishna and Balarama was duly performed. During this ceremony, Vasudeva gave various ornaments in charity to the Brahmanas and endowed them with cows decorated with silken cloths and the golden ornaments. Previously, during the birth of Krishna and Balarama, Vasudeva had wanted to give cows in charity to the Brahmanas, but being imprisoned by Kamsa, he was able to do so only within his mind. With the death of Kamsa, the actual cows were given to the Brahmanas. I'm sorry, then Rama and Krishna were duly initiated with the sacred thread ceremony, and they repeated the chanting of the Gayatri mantra. The Gayatri mantra is offered to disciples after the sacred thread ceremony, and Balarama and Krishna properly discharged the duties of chanting this mantra. Anyone who executes the chanting of this mantra has to abide by certain principles and vows. Although Balaram and Krishna were both transcendental personalities, they strictly followed the regulative principles. Both were initiated by their family priest Gargacharya, usually known as Gargamuni, the Acharya of the Yadu dynasty. According to Vedic culture, every respectable person has an Acharya or a spiritual master. One is not considered to be a perfectly cultured man without being initiated and trained by an Acharya. It is said, therefore, that one who has approached an Acharya is actually in perfect knowledge. Lord Krishna and Balarama were the supreme personality of Godhead, the master of all education and knowledge. There was no need for them to accept a spiritual master or acharya, yet for the instruction of ordinary men, they also accepted a spiritual master for advancement in spiritual knowledge. It is customary, after being initiated in the Gayatri mantra, for one to leave away from home for some time under the care of Acharya in order to be trained in spiritual life. During this period, one has to work under the spiritual master as an ordinary menial servant. There are many rules and regulations for a brahmachari living under the care of an acharya, and both Lord Krishna and Balarama strictly followed those regulative principles while living under the instruction of their spiritual master Sandipani Muni in his place in northern India. According to scriptural injunctions, a spiritual master should be respected and be regarded on an equal level with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Both Krishna and Balarama exactly followed those principles with great devotion and underwent the regulations of Brahmacharya, and thus they satisfied their spiritual master who instructed them in Vedic knowledge. Being very satisfied, Sandipani Muni instructed them in all the intricacies of Vedic wisdom as well as in supplementary literatures such as the Upanishads. Because Krishna and Balarama happened to be Kshatriyas, they were specifically trained in military science, politics, and mathematics. In politics, there are 6 departments of knowledge: how to make peace, how to fight, how to pacify, how to divide and rule, how to give shelter, etc. All these items were fully explained and instructed to Krishna and Balarama. The ocean is the source of water in a river. The cloud is created by the evaporation of ocean water, and the same water is distributed as rain all over the surface of the earth and then returns toward the ocean in rivers. So Krishna and Balarama, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are the source of all kinds of knowledge. But because they were playing like ordinary human boys, they set the example so that everyone would receive knowledge from the right source. Thus, they agreed to take knowledge from a spiritual matter. Okay, someone can go on. I'm sorry.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu. Okay, I'll continue. After hearing only once from the teacher, Krishna and Balaram learned all the arts and sciences. In 64 days and 64 nights, they learned all the necessary arts and sciences that are required in human society. During daytime, they took lessons on a subject from the teacher, and by nightfall, after having heard from the teacher, they were expert in that department of knowledge. First of all, they learned how to sing, how to compose songs, and how to recognize the different tunes. They learned the favorable and unfavorable accents and meters, how to sing different kinds of rhythms and melodies, and how to follow them by beating different kinds of drums. They learned how to dance with rhythm, melody, and different songs. They learned how to write dramas, and they learned the various types of paintings, beginning from different village arts up to the highest perfectional stage. They also learned how to paint tilak on the face and make different kinds of dots on the forehead and cheeks. Then they learned the art of painting on the floor with liquid paste of rice and flour. Such paintings are very popular at auspicious ceremonies performed at household affairs or in the temple. They learned how to make a resting place with flowers and how to decorate clothing and leaves with colorful paintings. They also learned how to set different valuable jewels in ornaments. They learned the art of ringing water pots. Water pots are filled with water to a certain measurement so that when one beats on the pots, different tunes are produced, and when the pots are beaten together, they produce a melodious sound. They also learned how to throw water in the rivers or the lakes while taking a bath amongst friends. They also learned how to decorate with flowers. This art of decorating can still be seen in various temples of Vrindavan during the summer season. It is called Pulabadi. The dais, the throne, the walls, and the ceiling are all fully decorated, and a small aromatic fountain of flowers is fixed in the center. Because of these floral decorations, the people, fatigued from the heat of the summer season, become refreshed. Krishna and Balaram learned the art of dressing hair in various styles and fixing a helmet in different position on the head. They also learned how to perform on the theatrical stage, how to decorate dramatic actors with flower ornaments over the ear, and how to sprinkle sandalwood pulp with water to produce a nice fragrance. They also learned the art of performing magical feasts. Within the magical field, there is an art called Bahurupi, by which a person dresses himself in such a way that when he approaches a friend, he cannot be recognized. They also learned, so this disguising comes from here, this art of disguising. They also learned how to make beverages, which are required at various times, and they studied syrups and tastes and the effects of intoxication. They learned how to manipulate thin threads for dancing puppets, and they learned how to string wires on musical instruments such as the vina, sitar, and tampura to produce melodious sounds. Then they learned puzzles and how to set and solve them. They learned the art of reading books, from which even a foolish student can very quickly learn to read the alphabet and comprehend writing. Then they learned how to rehearse and act out a drama. They also studied the art of solving crossword puzzles, filling up the missing space and making complete words. They also learned how to draw pictographic literature. In some countries in the world, pictographic literature is still current. A story is represented by pictures. For instance, a man and a house are pictured to represent a man going home. Krishna and Balaram also learned the art of architecture, how to construct residential buildings. They learned to recognize valuable jewels by studying the luster and the quality of their colors. Then they learned the art of setting jewels with gold and silver. They also learned how to study soil to find minerals. This study of soil is now a greatly specialized science, but formerly it was common knowledge, even for the ordinary man. They learned to study herbs and plants and to extract medicine from the elements. By studying the different species of plants, they learned how to crossbreed plants and get different types of fruits. They learned how to train and engage lambs and cocks in fighting for sporting purposes. This is interesting. Then they learned how to teach parrots to speak, answer the questions of human beings. They learned practical physiology, how to influence another's mind and thus induce another to act according to one's own desire. Sometimes this is called hypnotism. They learned how to wash hair, dye it in different colors, and curl it in different ways. They learned the art of telling what is written in someone's book without actually seeing it. They learned to tell what is contained in another's fist. Sometimes children imitate this art, although not very accurately. One child keeps something within his fist and asks his friend, "Can you tell me what is within?" And when the friend gives some suggestion, although he actually cannot tell, but there is an art by which one can understand and actually tell what is held within the fist. Krishna and Balaram learned how to speak and understand the languages of various countries. They learned not only the languages of human beings, Krishna could also speak even with animals and birds. Evidence of this is found in Vaishnava literature compiled by the Goswamis. Then they learned how to make carriages and airplanes from flowers. They made airplanes from flowers. That's interesting. It is said in the Ramayana that after defeating Ravana, Ramachandra was carried from Lanka to Bharatavarsha on a plain of flowers called Pushparatha. Krishna then learned the art of foretelling events by seeing signs. In a book called Kanar Vachana, the various types of signs and omens are described. If one is going out, one sees someone with a bucket full of water, that is a very good sign. But if one sees someone with an empty bucket, it is not a very good sign. Similarly, if one sees cow's milk along with her calf, it is a good sign. The result of understanding these signs is that one can foretell events. And Krishna learned the science. Krishna also learned the art of composing matrika. Matrika is a crossword section with 3 letters in a line. Counting any 3 from any side, it will count 9. The matrakas are of different kinds and are for different purposes. Krishna learned the art of cutting valuable stones such as diamonds, and he learned the art of questioning them and answering by immediately composing poetry within his mind. He learned the science of the action and reaction of physical combination and permutations. He learned the art of a psychiatrist who can understand the physical movements of another person. He learned how to satisfy one's desires. Desires are very difficult to fulfill, but if one desires something which is unreasonable and can never be fulfilled, the desire can be subdued and satisfied, and that is an art. By this art, one can also subdue sex impulses when they are aroused, as they are even in brahmachari life. By this art, one can make even an enemy his friend, or transfer the direct action of a physical element to other things. Lord Krishna and Balaram, the reservoir of all knowledge of arts and sciences, exhibited their perfect understanding when they offered to serve their teacher by awarding him anything he desired. This offering by the student to the teacher or spiritual master is called Guru Dakshina. It is essential that a student satisfy the teacher in return for any learning received, either material or spiritual. When Krishna and Balaram offered their service in this way, the teacher, Sandipani Muni, thought it wise to ask them for something extraordinary, something which no common student could offer. He therefore consulted with his wife about what to ask from them. They had already seen the extraordinary potencies of Krishna and Balaram and could understand that the two boys were the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They decided to ask for the return of their son, who had drowned in the ocean on the bank of Prabhasa Kshetra. When Krishna and Balaram heard from their teachers about the death of his son on the bank of Prabhasa Kshetra, they immediately started for the ocean on their chariots. Reaching the beach, they asked the controlling deity of the ocean to return the son of their teacher. The ocean deity immediately appeared before the Lord and offered him all respectful obeisances with great humility. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Dimitri Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Dimitri Prabhu, you can continue if you can read. Hari Bol. Okay, Hare Krishna. The Lord said, "Some time back you caused the drowning of the son of our teacher. I order you to return him." The ocean deity replied, "The boy was not actually taken by me, but was captured by a demon named Panchajana. This great demon generally remains deep in the water, in the shape of a conch shell. The son of your teacher might be within the belly of the demon, having been devoured by him." On hearing this, Krishna dove deep into the water and caught hold of the demon Panchajana. He killed him on the spot, but could not find the son of his teacher within his belly. Therefore, he took the demon's dead body in the shape of a conch shell and returned to his chariot on the beach of Prabhasa Kshetra. From there he started for Samyamani, the residence of Yamaraj, the superintendent of deaths. Accompanied by his elder brother Balaram, who is also known as Halayuda, Krishna arrived there and blew on his conch shell. Hearing this vibration, Yamaraj appeared and received Krishna with all respectful obeisances. Yamaraj could understand who Krishna and Balaram were, and therefore he immediately offered his humble service to the Lord. Krishna had appeared on the surface of the earth as an ordinary human being, but actually Krishna and Balaram are the super soul living within the heart of every living entity. They are Vishnu himself, but were playing just like an ordinary human boys. As Yamaraj offered his service to the Lord, Sri Krishna asked him to return his teacher's son, who had come to him as a result of his work. Considering my ruling as supreme, said Krishna, you should immediately return the son of my teacher. Yamaraj returned the boy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Krishna and Balaram brought him to his father. The brothers asked if their teacher had anything more to ask from them, but he replied, My dear sons, you have done enough for me. I am now completely satisfied. What further want can there be for a man who has disciples like you? My dear boys, you can go home now. These glorious acts of yours will always be renowned all over the world. You are above all blessings, yet it is my duty to bless you. I give you the benediction that whatever you speak will remain as eternally fresh as the instruction of the Vedas. Your teachings will not only be honored within this universe or in this millennium, but in all spaces, in all places and ages, and will remain increasingly new and important. Due to this benediction from his teacher, Lord Krishna's Bhagavad Gita is ever increasingly fresh, and it is not only renowned within this universe, but in other planets and in other universes also. Being ordered by the teacher, Krishna and Balaram immediately returned home on their chariots. They traveled at great speeds like the wind and made sounds like the crashing of clouds. All the residents of Mathura, who had not seen Krishna and Balaram for a long time, were very pleased to see them again. They felt joyful, like a person who has regained his lost property. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 44th chapter of Krishna. Krishna recovers the son of his teacher. Haribol.
Prabhu, Sami,
Yes, Prabhu.
where can I watch this again? Because I missed very lot points.
The episodes, I can link them.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Haribol.
Haribol. Yeah, the next chapter is really long, so I don't think we can finish it. It's like 7 pages. Can we read it? Should we read it? Okay, maybe we can read it.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, Haribol.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances to all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Okay, Prabhu, you
May I
can.
read, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Oh, thank you, Prabhu. Okay, chapter 44. Krishna recovers.
I think it's next one.
Yeah.
It's this one.
Oh, yeah. Okay, chapter 45. Uddhava visits Vrindavana. Nanda Maharaj returned to Vrindavana without Krishna and Balaram. He was accompanied only by the cowherd boys and men. It was certainly a very pathetic scene for the gopis, Mother Yashoda, Srimati Radharani, and all the inhabitants and residents of Vrindavan. Many devotees have tried to make adjustments to Krishna's being away from Vrindavana, because according to expert opinion, Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, never goes even a step out of Vrindavana. He always remains there. The explanation of expert devotees is that Krishna was actually not absent from Vrindavana. He came back with Nanda Maharaj as promised. When he was going to Mathura on the chariot driven by Akrura and the gopis were practically blocking the way, Krishna assured them that he was coming back just after finishing his business in Mathura. He told them not to be overwhelmed, and in this way he pacified them. But when he did not come back with Nanda Maharaj, it appeared that he either cheated them or could not keep his promise. Expert devotees, however, have decided that Krishna was neither a cheater nor a breaker of promises. Krishna, in his original identity, returned with Nanda Maharaj and stayed with the gopis and Mother Yashoda in his bhava expansion. Krishna and Balaram remained in Mathura, not in their original forms, but in their expansions as Vasudeva and Sankarsana. The real Krishna and Balaram were in Vrindavan in their bhava manifestation, whereas in Mathura they appeared in the Prabhava and Vaibhava expansions. This is the expert opinion of advanced devotees of Krishna. But when Nanda Maharaj was preparing to return to Vrindavan, there was discussion among him. Krishna there was discussion among him, Krishna and Balarama, as to how the boys could live in separation from Nanda. The conclusion to separate was reached by mutual agreement. Vasudeva and Devaki happened to be Krishna and Balarama's real parents. They wanted to keep them now because of the death of Kamsa. While Kamsa was alive, they were kept under the protection of Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan. Now, naturally, the father and mother of Krishna and Balaram wanted them to remain with them, specifically for the reformatory function of purification, the sacred thread ceremony. They also wanted to give them a proper education, for this is the duty of the father. Another consideration was that all the friends of Kamsa outside Mathura were planning to attack Mathura. For that reason, also Krishna's presence was required. Krishna did not want Vrindavana to be disturbed by enemies like Dantavakra and Jarasandha. If Krishna were to go to Vrindavana, these enemies would not only attack Mathura but would go on to Vrindavana, and the peaceful inhabitants of Vrindavana would be disturbed. Krishna therefore decided to remain in Mathura, and Nanda Maharaj went back to Vrindavan. Although the inhabitants of Vrindavana were feeling separation from Krishna, Krishna was always present with them by his Leela or pastimes, and this made them ecstatic. Since Krishna had departed from Vrindavana to Mathura, the inhabitants of Vrindavana, especially Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, Srimati Radharani, the gopis, and the cowherd boys, were simply thinking of Krishna at every step. They were thinking, Krishna was playing in this way, Krishna was blowing his flute, Krishna was joking with us, and Krishna was embracing us. This is called Leela Smaran, and it is the process. This is called Leela Smarana, and it is the process of association with Krishna, most recommended by great devotees. Even Lord Chaitanya enjoyed Leela Smarana association of Krishna when he was at Puri. Those who are in the most exalted position of devotional service and ecstasy can live with Krishna always by remembering his pastime. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur has given us a transcendental literature entitled Krishna Bhavanamrita, which is full with Krishna's pastimes. Devotees can remain absorbed in Krishna thought by reading such books. Any book of Krishna Leela, even this book, Krishna and our teachings of Lord Chaitanya, is actually solace for devotees who are feeling the separation of Krishna. That Krishna and Balaram did not come to Vrindavana can be adjusted as follows. They did not break their promise to return to Vrindavana, nor were they absent, but their presence was necessary in Mathura. In the meantime, Uddhava, a cousin brother of Krishna, came to see Krishna from Dwaraka. He was the son of Vasudeva's brother and was almost the same age as Krishna. His bodily features resembled Krishna's almost exactly. After returning from his teacher's home, Krishna was pleased to see Uddhava, who happened to be his dearmost friend. He wanted to send him to Vrindavana with a message to the residents to pacify their deep feeling of separation. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Yayatha mam prapadyante, Krishna is very responsive. He responds in proportion to the devotee's advancement in devotional service. The gopis were thinking of Krishna in separation 24 hours a day. Krishna was also always thinking of the gopis, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, and the residents of Vrindavana. Although he appeared to be away from them, he could understand how they were transcendentally aggrieved, and so he immediately wanted to send Uddhava to give them a message of solace. Hari Bol. Anyone can continue.
Hare Krishna. Uddhava is described as the most exalted personality in the Vrishni dynasty, almost equal to Krishna. He was a great friend and, on account of being the direct student of Brihaspati, the teacher and priest of the heavenly planets, he was very intelligent and sharp in decision. From the intellectual standpoint, he was highly qualified. Krishna, being a very loving friend of Uddhava, wanted to send him to Vrindavana just to study the highly elevated ecstatic devotion service practiced there. Even if one is highly elevated in material education, and if even the disciple of Brihaspati, he still has to learn from the gopis and the residents of Vrindavana how to love Krishna to the highest degree. Sending Uddhava to Vrindavana with a message to the residents of Vrindavana to pacify them was Krishna's special favor to Uddhava. So Krishna's name is Hari, which means one who takes away all the distress from the surrendered souls.
Lord Chaitanya states that there cannot be at any time a worship as exalted as that realized by the gopis. Being very anxious about the gopis' grief, Krishna talked with Uddhava and politely requested him to go to Vrindavana. Shaking Uddhava's hand with his own hands, he said, "My dear gentle friend Uddhava, please go immediately to Vrindavana and try to pacify my father and mother, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Devi, and the gopis. They are very much suffering from great ailments. Go and give them a message. I hope their ailments will be partially relieved. The gopis are always absorbed in thoughts of me. They have dedicated body, desire, life, and soul to me. I am anxious not only for the gopis, but for anyone who sacrifices society, friendship, love, and personal comfort for me. It is my duty to protect such exalted devotees. The gopis are the most dear. They are always thinking of me in such a way that they remain overwhelmed and almost dead in anxiety due to separation from me. They are keeping alive simply by thinking that I am returning to them very soon. Requested by Lord Krishna, Uddhava immediately left on his chariot and carried the message to Gokula. He approached Vrindavana at sunset when the cows were returning home from the pasturing ground. Uddhava and his chariot were covered by the dust raised by the hooves of the cows. He saw bulls running after cows for mating. Other cows with overladen milk bags were running after the calves to fill them with milk. Uddhava saw that the entire land of Vrindavan was filled with white cows and their calves. Cows were running here and there all over Gokula, and he could hear the sound of milking. Every residential house in Vrindavana was decorated for the worship of the sun god and the fire god, and for the reception of guests, cows, brahmanas, and demigods. Every home was illuminated with light and incense arranged for sanctification. All over Vrindavana there were nice flower garlands, flying birds, and the humming sound of the bees. The lakes were filled with lotus flowers and with doves and swans. Uddhava entered the house of Nanda Maharaj and was received as a representative of Vasudeva. Nanda Maharaj offered him a place and sat down with him to ask about messages from Krishna, Balarama, and other family members in Madura. He could understand that Uddhava was a very confidential friend of Krishna and therefore must have come with good messages. My dear Uddhava, how is my friend Vasudeva enjoying life? He is now released from the prison of Kamsa, and he is now with his friends and his children, Krishna and Balarama. So he must be very happy. Tell me about him and his welfare. We are also very happy that Kamsa, the most sinful demon, is now killed. He was always envious of the family of the Yadus, his friends and relatives. Now, because of his sinful activities, he is dead and gone, along with all his brothers. Please let us now know whether Krishna is remembering his father and mother and his friends and companions in Vrindavana. Does he like to remember his cows, his gopis, his Govardhana hill, his pasturing ground in Vrindavana? Or has he forgotten all this now? Is there any possibility of his coming back to his friends and relatives so that we can again see his beautiful face with its raised nose and lotus-like eyes? We remember how he saved us from the forest fire, how he saved us from the great snake Kaliya in the Yamuna, how he saved us from the so many other demons, and we simply think how much we are obliged to him for giving us protection in so many dangerous situations. My dear Uddhava, when we think of Krishna's beautiful face and eyes and his different activities here in Vrindavana, become so overwhelmed that all our activities cease. We simply think of Krishna, how he used to smile and how he looked upon us. When we go to the banks of the Yamuna and other lakes of Vrindavana, or near Govardhana Hill or the pasturing fields, we see that the impressions of Krishna's footprints are still on the surface of the earth. We remember him playing in those places because he was constantly visiting them. When his appearance within our minds becomes manifest, we immediately become absorbed in the thought of him. We think, therefore, that Krishna and Balarama may be chief demigods in heaven who have appeared before us like ordinary boys in order to execute particular duties on earth. This was also foretold by Gargamuni when making Krishna's horoscope. If Krishna were not a great personality, how could he have killed Kamsa, who possessed the strength of 10,000 elephants? Besides Kamsa, there were very strong wrestlers, as well as the giant elephant Kuvalayapida. All these animals and demons were killed by him, just as a lion kills an ordinary animal. How wonderful it is that Krishna took in one hand the big heavy bow made of three joined palm trees and broke it very quickly. How wonderful it is that continually for 7 days he held up Govardhana hill in one hand. How wonderful it is that he has killed all the demons like Pralambasura, Denugasura, Arishtasura, Trinavarta, and Bhagasura. They were so strong that even the demigods in the heavenly planets were afraid of them. But Krishna killed them as easily as anything. While describing the uncommon activities of Krishna before Uddhava, Nanda Maharaj gradually became overwhelmed and could not speak anymore. As for Mother Yashoda, she sat by the side of her husband and heard the pastimes of Krishna without speaking. She was simply crying incessantly, and milk was pouring from her breast. When Uddhava saw Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda so extraordinarily overwhelmed with thoughts of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and when he experienced their extraordinary affection for him, he also became overwhelmed and began to speak as follows. My dear Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaja, you are most respectable among human beings, because no one but you can meditate in such transcendental ecstasy. Both Balarama and Krishna are the original personalities of Godhead, from whom the cosmic manifestation is emanating. They are chief among all personalities. Both of them are the effective cause of this material creation. Material nature is conducted by the Purusha incarnation, who are all acting under Krishna and Balarama. By their partial representation, they enter in the hearts of all living entities. They are the source of all knowledge and all forgetfulness also. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter. I am present in everyone's heart, and I cause one to remember and to forget. I am the original compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the actual knower of the Vedas. If, at the time of death, a person can fix his pure mind upon Krishna, even for a moment, he becomes eligible to give up this material body and appear in his original spiritual body, just as the sun rises with all illumination, passing from his life in this way. He immediately enters into the spiritual kingdom, Vaikuntha. This is the result of Krishna conscious practice. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, whose turn? Ranjal Prabhu? Or David Prabhu can also read. Or Karti Prabhu. Haribol. Okay, Hare Krishna, I can read also. So if we practice Krishna consciousness in this present body while we are in a healthy condition and in good mind, simply by chanting the holy Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, we will have every possibility of fixing our mind upon Krishna at the time of death. If that is done, then our life becomes successful without any doubts. Similarly, if we keep our mind always absorbed in fruitive activities for material enjoyment, then naturally at the time of death we shall think of such activities and again be forced to enter into a material conditioned body to suffer the threefold miseries of material existence. Therefore, to remain always absorbed in Krishna consciousness was the standard of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, exhibited by Maharaj Nanda, Yashoda, and the gopis. If we can simply follow their footsteps, even to a minute proportion, our lives will surely become successful, and we will enter into the spiritual kingdom, Vaikuntha. My dear mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, Uddhava continued, you have thus fixed your minds wholly and solely upon the Supreme Person of Godhead, Narayana, in his transcendental form, the cause of impersonal Brahman. The Brahman effulgence is only the bodily reva of Narayana, and because you are always absorbed in ecstatic thought of Krishna and Balaram, what activity remains to be performed by you? I have brought a message from Krishna to the effect that he will soon come back to Vrindavan and satisfy you both by his personal presence. Krishna promised that he would come back to Vrindavan after finishing his business in Mathura. This promise he will surely fulfill. I therefore request you both, who are the best among all fortunates, to be not aggrieved on the account of Krishna's absence. You are already perceiving his presence 24 hours a day, and yet he will come and see you very soon. Actually, he is present everywhere and in everyone's heart, just as fire is present in wood. Since Krishna is the super soul, no one is his enemy, no one is his friend, and no one is equal to him, and no one is lower or higher than him. Actually, he has no father, mother, brother, or relative, nor does he require society, friendship, and love. He does not have a material body. He never appears or takes birth as an ordinary human being. He does not appear in higher or lower species of life like an ordinary living entities who are forced to take birth on account of their previous activities. He appears by his internal potency just to give protection to his devotees. He is never influenced by the modes of material nature, but when he appears within this material world, it seems that he acts like an ordinary living entity under the spell of the modes of material nature. In fact, he is the overseer of this material creation and is not affected by the material modes of nature. He creates, maintains, and dissolves the whole cosmic manifestation. We wrongly think of Krishna and Balaram as ordinary human beings. We are like dizzy men who see the whole world wheeling around them. The personality of God is no one's son. He is actually everyone's father, mother, and supreme controller. There is no doubt of this. Whatever is being experienced, whatever is already in existence, whatever is not in existence, whatever will be in existence in the future, whatever is the smallest and whatever is the biggest, have no separate existence outside the Supreme Person of Godhead. Everything is resting in him, but he is out of touch with everything manifested. Nanda and Uddhava thus passed the whole night in discussing Krishna. The morning the gopis prepared for morning aratrika by lighting their lamps and sprinkling butter mixed with yogurt. After finishing their Mangala Arati, they engaged themselves in churning butter from yogurt. While the gopis were engaged, the lamps reflected on their ornaments became still more illuminated. The churning rod, their arms, their earrings, their bangles, their breasts, everything moved, and the kumkuma powder gave their faces a saffron luster comparable to the rising sun. While churning, they also sang the glories of Krishna. The two sound vibrations mixed together ascended to the sky and sanctified the whole atmosphere. After sunrise, the gopis came as usual to offer their respects to Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. But when they saw the golden chariot of Uddhava at the door, they began to inquire among themselves, what was that chariot, and to whom did it belong? Some of them inquired whether Akrura, who had taken away Krishna, had again returned. They were not very pleased with Akrura because, being engaged in the service of Kamsa, he took Krishna away to the city of Mathura. All the gopis conjectured that Akrura might have come again to fulfill another cruel plan. But they thought, we are now dead bodies without our supreme master Krishna. What further act can he perpetrate on these dead bodies? While they were talking in this way, Uddhava finished his morning oblations, prayers, and chanting, and came before them. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 45th chapter of Krishna. Uddhava visits Vrindavan. Haribo. Okay, Haribo, Haribo. Here is the elephant mood. The elephant moved before Krishna like inevitable death. What is this one? The blood began to flow just like waves of a river. Bumblebee, you are the unreliable servant of unreliable master. Here Radharani is talking to the bumblebee. And here is Uddhava. Some time back you caused the drowning of the son of our teacher. I order you to return him. Rivo. Full of feminine bashfulness, Kubja stood gracefully before Krishna. Krishna and Balaram jumped from the top of the mountain. Ribo. Okay, now let's go to Sixastakam first. चेतोदर्पणमार्जनं भवमहादावाग्निर्वापनं श्रेयः कैरवचन्द्रिकावितरणं विद्यावादुजीवनम् आनन्दं बुद्धिवर्धनं प्रतिपदं पूर्णामृतस्वादनं सर्वात्मा स्नपनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्णसङ्कीर्तनम् रिभो
नाम्नां बहुधानि च सर्वशक्तिस्तत्रार्पितां नियमिता स्मरणेन काल एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन्ममापि दुर्दैवं दृशां हाजनिनानुरागा
Tirnadapi Sunijana Tarorapi Sahishnana Amanina Manadayana Kirtaniya Sada Harihim.
नदनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगदीशकामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरे भवतात् भक्तिरहैतुकी त्वयि
अयिनन्दतनुज किङ्करं पतितामां शमे भवाम्बुधौ कृपया तव पादपङ्कज स्थितधूलिसदृशं विचिन्तय
Nayanam Galada Shuddharayam Vadanam Gidgadarudhaya Gira Pulakir Nichitam Vapuhu Kada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati.
युगायितं निमेषेण चक्षुषा प्रविश्यहितं शून्यायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्द विरहेण मे
आश्रित्य वा पादरतां नष्टु माम् अदर्शनां मर्महदां करोतु वा यथा तदा वा विदधातु लम्पटो मत्प्राणनाथस्तु स एव नापरः
Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditioned life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtana movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
Oh my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. In this, and thus we have. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus we have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the strong in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
O Almighty Lord, I have Almighty. Yes, Prabhu, you can continue.
Oh Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your costless devotion service, birth after.
O son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name?
Oh Govinda, feeling your separations, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant, the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Sri Sixastakam ki jai.
Jai.
Sankirtan ki jai. Panchatattva ki
Jai.
jai. Nityananda Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
श्री Krishna Chaitanya
Jai,
Prabhu ki jai, Jagat Guru Shri Bhakti
Jai,
Swami Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur
Jai.
Nande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.